Off the agenda. Les,
Chair, I'll move it be adopted as presented.
all in favor? Carried. Adopt the minutes. Larry? All in favor? Carrying on. Delegations, we have Ralph Wright. He's ready, is he, Quentin? Okay. Carry on.
Mr. Wright, can you hear us? We can't hear you.
Hey, is this going to be a silent one?
There, how about that? There you go. Better?
Good morning, sir.
How you doing?
Good, yourself?
Good. So everything seems to be working?
Gotcha.
We are ready when you are.
Oh, want me to start right now?
Absolutely.
Okay, I can do that. Well, thanks for having me back, everybody. Really appreciate that. We're going to take a look at what current conditions are across the province, focusing in on the Stettler area. And then we're going to go look at some very long-term 10-year deficits that have been looming in your area and across the province. And then we'll go back and look at the last 120 years to put everything into perspective. So first off, I'll start with the last 7 days. We've had some rain move into the province, remnants of a storm that was out in the Pacific Ocean there. And here's Stettler County, 1 to 3 on the southern end and grading up to maybe 10 to 5. It's even 10 to 5 isn't a heck of a lot for people, but at least it's better than nothing, I guess. And we've had quite a bit of moisture right across this strip here and down along parts of southern Alberta, but they've been very, very dry for pretty much most of the season, as we'll see. If you take the last 30 days, crops are starting to finish up. Pastures are probably still very much in need of moisture. This is the situation across the province. Most of the south is what we're calling near normal, but that was really due to the last week or so of rain that they received. Across central parts of the province, still quite dry. In fact, we got a few 1 in 50-year lows cropping up, and Stettler County is anywhere from a 1 in 6 to 12-year lows for the last 30 days, up to almost near normal along the river. And the story for much of the province, the northern half, has been relatively wet throughout most of the season, except for the pieces not shown here yet, but they've been quite dry as well up in this area. If you take a look at how much rain has been feeding the crops, this is 30-day relative to normal. There's parts in Stettler County that have received less than 20 millimeters of rain over the last 30 days. And of course, this is in the face of some pretty cool temperatures. And again, the north half of the province has been quite wet. Huge area in the south, less than 20 millimeters. And some of these areas are even seeing less than 10 millimeters. And since this is due to thunderstorm activity, we would expect these maps to sort of be in a generalization. There will be some areas that receive more and some areas that receive less too.
So, excuse me, can you, is there a possibility we can see the maps?
Oh, yeah, I guess I should screen share. Sorry about that. Let's see, window. There we go. Let's do that. Glad you guys spoke up. Okay, can you see screen?
We see the wrong screen. Show your other.
Is that better?
We see your Zoom window right now.
That's all you see. Okay.
Yeah, you're the 8th counselor now.
Maybe let me just stop sharing and new share entire screen. There we go. That should be good. Okay. Now, do you see that?
Yes, thank you very much, Ralph.
Okay. Do you want me to back up or just keep going?
You can keep going. We got the gist of it. We can figure out the map. You were describing it very well, so.
I'll send the maps to you. So these are the last 90 days, and we've got this huge area in the south central parts of the province that has been chronically dry, and arguably since August. Stettler, you guys are looking at about 1 to 3 year lows, 3 to 6 year lows throughout most of the area, and almost 1 to 12 to 25 year lows down in the south end. The province there again. And again, this is that wet area that we've been seeing time and time again. Some of these areas, 1 in 50 year highs. So they're probably praying for rain to end, yet there is another swack of it on the way over the next few days, up to 50 millimeters in this part of province. If you look at the amount of moisture that's been feeding your crops for the last 30 days, basically 120 to maybe 160 millimeters in the south. That's 90 days. So this is June, July, and August, and a piece of May. And that's just simply not enough to keep crops going. They need to double that to be quite happy. But there is quite a strong gradient as we move northward. And again, compared to southern Alberta, these guys have seen less than 80 millimeters and quite a bit so in many cases. Along with some exceptional heat. This is a temperature map relative to normal for that same 90-day period. So you guys have a core of the growing season like this once every 12 to 25 years. It's this warm, this long. And, of course, southern Alberta have been contending with the same thing. Like I mentioned earlier, the piece has been quite dry, and they've also been contending with well above normal temperatures in the face of lack of moisture. Now, looking a little wider, 365 days out, finally I can show these maps because we had June and July of last year really sort of polluting the picture because there was a big whack of moisture that was still stuck in these maps. It wasn't really doing us any good because it was all used last year. But now that we've gone past there, this is August 22nd to August 21, you can see that most of your county's been almost 1 in 50 year dry. There's 1 in 50 year dry here, 1 in 50 year. That means this is pretty, what's that?
Oh, I'm just saying one of the councillors, that's Les's house you're pointing to.
Oh, of course. All right. Well, the fact that there's so much this dark pink in the the light pink there tells me that, most of you guys are trending towards 1 in 50 year lows, probably almost touching it, just not enough to not nudge into that category. And that drops off to about 1 in 25 year lows in the north for year over year. So you've been quite dry. And again, remember, this is on the heels of 2021. And even one may argue 2022, because the only thing that really saved 2022 was June and July rainfall last year. It really, really helped. So there's been quite a few years of some significant dry now. I'm going to show you a soil map, just the soil zones dark. Not quite yet. Sorry. This is the last 365-day total precip. So you're about 200 to 250 on the low side, maybe even some touching below 200. Your normals are about 450. So you've lost about 200 to 250 millimeters of rain over the last year in the southern parts of the county. So interestingly enough, here's a soil zone map. So these are the brown Chernozems, dark brown and blacks, but they do match very well with the 365-day totals, which also happens in the normal. So really, these soils are truly a reflection of climate, obviously. And this year wasn't too much different in terms of the patterns. They were just accentuated, much higher in the north and much lower in the south, but still the same relative, pattern as the soil map, which is kind of interesting. Now, spring soil moisture, we're right at the head of the soil moisture recharge season. So, this is when the crop's water uses started to dwindle, and any rainfall we get, a little bit more of it goes to soil moisture as opposed to June and July, when anything that falls, pretty much the plants are sucking up. So we got a bit of headway or headwinds against us for recharging soil moisture this fall. You guys are sitting about 1 in 12-year lows throughout most of the county. What does this look like in terms of how far from normal? And remember, this is on a wheat crop. It's not pasture. It's down to 120 centimeters. So it's a general reflection of what soil moisture is like across your province. But for a wheat crop, to bring soil moisture relative to normal, you're down about 50 millimeters now. So you probably need 60, 70 millimeters of rain, and that should pop you back up to normal. And of course, as we go through the fall, this number won't stay static. It's going to depend on how much precipitation we receive.
Ralph,
Ralph, go on.
How does it change compared to pasture versus, or even hayland versus cropland?
Well, the hayland's really tough to pin down. Like, interestingly enough, if you take a look here, we've got near normal soil moisture across the south, and any of those guys are going to tell you, what are you talking about? It's been dry, dry, dry. But that's today, and they just got 20 millimeters of rain, which was enough to bring them to normal because they're normally so dry. So pastures, they've root down to 60 centimeters. Doing soil moisture maps on pastures tough because 20 millimeters of rain will take you from quite dry to near normal, so it's quite flashy. So I don't know if that answers your question, but the pastures have been chronically below normal for soil moisture. So the same as the crops. In fact, I think my next map shows that. This was soil moisture across the province on June 13th, following that hot May, even following a dry fall we had last year. We had very little recharge through our recharge season, plus it was quite warm, so it really, really dried things out. And following that May that was unbelievably warm, most of the province was at 1 in 50 years lows for soil moisture. So maybe, the take-home message here is you can get some pretty big turnarounds fairly quickly. And we see this in the meteorological record time and time again, where it's dry for a long time, and then just all of a sudden something changes. The taps turn off and it starts getting wet again. So there's plenty of hope now between now and next planting season. So we'll just have to hope that, this dry spell kind of breaks and we hit another wet spell. And, one of the fire weather meteorologists told me normal is just what the number you get when you compute the extremes as you move from one extreme to the next. And, that's right for, weekly weather patterns, monthly, even yearly. So it doesn't seem like we transition out of these dry phases or wet phases. It's relatively abrupt quite often, not always, mind you, but more often than not, it seems to be quite abrupt. So if you take a look at your 10-year deficits now, so if you were to go 10 years back from today, and then, every single year, so we take these 10-year slices all the way back from 1961, and every year we advance a year. So we got these, what would it be, about 50 10-year slices. So this is your current 10-year slice relative to all the way back to 1961. So, how dry is the landscape, and what have you been farming through in general? And Stettler is sitting at about 1 in 25 to 50 year lows, with this 1 in 50 year on the side here. So if your people have been coming through this okay, I think you can sort of take heart in the fact that this is about as bad as it gets. You've been quite dry for a long time, and you certainly are due some wetter weather. In fact, Alberta overall has been on the dry side for the past 10 years or so. Now, how much rain have you lost over this 10 years? This map is showing that you're anywhere from about 600 to 800 millimeters of lost moisture. That's in your rivers, dugouts, groundwater, all that sort of stuff. Agriculture is a little bit different because, we can do very, very well with below normal moisture, providing that we get it in those critical months, end of May, June, July, and maybe, the beginning of August. So you could have a very dry year and still have bumper crops, in terms of what I'm trying to show here. So they're not totally coupled. This is more looking at your longer term water supplies and what people have been through in terms of the historical norms. We've got some areas down in southern Alberta where they're almost 1,200 millimeters below normal. They've almost lost 2.5 years of moisture in the last 10. So how does this stack up to the long-term normal? And what we're looking at here is 1901 to 2022. This is the percent of ag area to more than 1 in 25 year dry for an agricultural year. And the reason I use agricultural year is September 1 generally starts the beginning of the soil moisture recharge season, which the soil moisture is there for the crop the next year. And pretty much August 31st, you're not really caring about too much moisture for your crops, unless of course we're talking about pasture. But this is a convenient look at, where have we been in the last, 120 years. And so if more than 25% of the ag area, so this is 1 in 25 year, what is the percent of the ag area that was at that? We can see 2021 really stood out province-wide, large provincially wide drought that occurred there. Also 2009, and there's 2001, 2002 for perspective. So we've had quite a few in recent times, but if we go all the way back to the beginning of the century, we can see that this was more the norm. And, I don't even know what normal is again anymore, but we tend to not be quite as bad as we were at the turn of the century. Now, there's a little bit of problem resolving these maps. There's not quite enough stations, so I wouldn't be, drawing a line over here and saying, well, that was, worse than that. These bars could be at any height. They could be higher, they could be lower. I just don't know. We didn't have the weather station. But the important thing here is from about the 50s on to about 97, we didn't have a lot of extensive drought in Alberta. And this is what we grew up with. There's very few people with a living memory that stems back to this part of the century. And this was normal for them, all this dry. And then they went into this beautiful, cooler, wetter period. And now we're coming into another dry phase. And, I think this really puts into perspective, the need for adaptation. If we can adapt to what the previous meteorological records given us, then it's quite possible we can, be fairly resilient going forward. And then on the flip side, this is more than 1 in 25 year yet wet. So really, we haven't had a lot of wet years in the past. It was an awful lot of wet years through this cooler period that we've all grown up on, and all of our, we've become accustomed to it. Maybe the cottage owners and lakes and dugouts and whatnot, they would often fill right up until about 2000. But, lately it's been quite a bit drier along with droughts. And we see a similar period back through here to the 20s and 40s where you didn't have a lot of wet years. So hopefully this puts, the whole context of this last 10 years into perspective for you. And that's all. I can take questions now.
So Ralph, James Snyder here.
Yes.
So when you're dealing with this, do you guys ever look at the aquifers as well as if they're going up or down, or is that not kind of your forte? Do you have access to that? I'm just wondering if the aquifers are being depleted as well.
Yeah, Alberta Environment does a bunch of groundwater work, and they have a bunch of wells all over the province. But no, we don't incorporate it. It's too hard to get a historical record. So I don't really know what the aquifers are doing.
Does anybody out there, or is this just like?
Yeah, I would say Alberta Environment does. In fact, let me just see if we can Alberta River Basins might have it.
Well, that's okay. We can.
Yeah, you guys. I do know there are a lot of. There's plenty of groundwater wells, and they don't quite have this long record. And you got to remember that they're going to be, if they started in the 70s or 60s, they're going to sort of be clouded by that cool, wet period. And we have problems, right now saying, well, what is normal? Well, what, without knowing how the groundwater was behaving back at the turn of the century, we can't say what was really normal.
Normal is sitting on the dryer, by the way. That's it. Somebody told me that a long time ago.
Normal is what?
A setting on the dryer.
Yeah, that's exactly true. It is a setting on the dryer. Yeah, I'll buy that one.
But a lot of this, Dave Grover, board member, what about the rain, but it comes like, to grow hay in most of the county of Stettler. There's the odd spotty area that grows got decent hay crops, but hay don't come in May, you don't have hay. That's the old saying.
Yeah, if the rain doesn't come in May, you don't have hay. That's interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of nice things like that. You know, seed into dust and the bins will bust is something they say around the million. But there's a lot of truth to those things too.
Well, it is. If you don't get rain on that hay earlier in the year, you're not we've got nothing. We got it.
Well, and probably even fall is important.
Crop failure.
You know?
Crop can go
Yeah,
a
you
long
know.
time without rain.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit.
Okay. Oh, I probably got my thing. There, that better? Okay. No, that's all I wanted to put into your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Carry
So
on.
can you, Ralph, predictions, put on your swami hat now?
I didn't see a crystal ball on that.
There's no crystal ball.
What are we looking at? Should we be looking at more trouble
Down the road.
or going forward drought wise, or is this the winter we should all be buying skidoos?
It's impossible to say, but I will give you my prediction. We're going to start losing daylight. Days are going to get shorter. It's going to turn colder in September. Probably around Halloween, we're going to get snow, and then we're stuck for about 6 months of very cold temperatures. And it should warm up after that.
I think you're absolutely right. I would put money on. Can we go to Vegas with that?
Yeah.
You can take that to the bank, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. I can, from statistical status, I tell you what, October 31st, when we took the kids out for the first 6 or 7 years of having our kids, we had to make sure that they had snowsuits on. We were up at Edson, but I'll tell you what, it was one of those times where you had to pile the snowsuits on to go Halloweening, so.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is the time it comes. You know, and to answer that question, I think if we take a look at this, it fell off a cliff, right? We had a lot of dry years and then, not so many. And then again, fell off a cliff. And now look how quickly this started.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I see this time and time again, and even this year's a perfect example of what happens. We've got southern Alberta, central parts of southern Alberta or south central Alberta that's exceptionally dry. And we've got parts in the northwest, northwest of Edmonton, Hinton, Grand Cache, Whitecourt. They're far too wet. So we've got 1 in 50 year wets in part of the province and 1 in 50 year dries. And that in itself isn't a norm. We see that time and time again throughout the meteorological record where we've got wet areas co-located with dry areas. And the wet spells begin abruptly. Same with the dry spells. 2001 is a perfect example. Southern Alberta just came out of the worst drought it had in a long, long time. And 2002 rolled around, 2002 rolled around. And some of those, they had too much moisture, whereas that dry seemed to shift north. And we had one of the worst droughts, they talk about in the press in history. I don't know if I agree with that, mind you, looking at some of the data I've seen, but still, it was certainly one of the worst in living memory, recent living memory.
The worst thing is it was province-wide. That was the biggest problem. And even it took into the United States, and I think that was part of what was any feed that was around, they were taking it up. So it seemed.
Yeah, well, and all the way through to Saskatchewan, Manitoba, too.
Yeah, it was just the sheer area that it encompassed was the what was the real issue, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that we went through that wet spell and we weren't really used to that sort of thing too, right?
Yeah.
Like I really am quite convinced Alberta anyways had some pretty good heydays, and that's it through here. We were lucky for a long time as we grew the province. Now, you know, will that come back? It's anybody's guess, and I suspect it will at some time, but you know, how long will this last? Hard to say.
Should have put more dugouts in, I guess.
Yeah.
Ralph, just, it was mentioned about the Western provinces, Larry Clark, board member, and I did hear on the radio yesterday, Saskatchewan is really bringing out farm aid. Southern Saskatchewan's terribly dry. Manitoba, is it dry too now, or how is Manitoba? Do you know?
I know, you know what, I'm not tracking the other provinces. There is, the Canadian North American Drought Monitor shows maps very much like I do for the entire, country. So those are, yeah, I don't have that answer. I haven't looked for a few months actually, come to think of it.
I just wondered if we're setting ourselves up in the same thing as we have in the past. So the states
Yeah.
this time, but yeah.
Anybody else got a question for him? Yeah.
There's the North American Drought Monitor, so they'll, you know, that's basically the conditions right across the continent. Very, very dry through here. There's your Saskatchewan, but you're right, all the way, it's a big dry. Forest fires in BC, things like that, right? So any other questions, guys, or gang?
No, thank you. That was very good, Ralph.
Very
Okay, great.
educational, thank you.
So if you guys have me on next time, do you want an update like this, or do you want something else, or, you know, what were you hoping for?
This is what I was looking for. This is exactly what I was looking for.
Okay, so you like the overviews of the current situation relative to,
And bring your crystal ball next time, please.
yeah, well, I gave you guys heard what I said. $10. That's gonna happen. All righty. Okay, guys. Well, gang, see you. Then we'll, thank you for having me.
Thanks again.
Thanks for all your information and stuff on that. That was wonderful. Thank you.
No
Yeah,
problem.
ready.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Okay, moving along. Administrators report. Quentin, go ahead.
All right, so a few things we've been working on. Erosion Sands Heights, installing picnic tables and seating the bare areas. Down to native grass, we got the benches in. Completed the rock pile removal at Northwest 28, 4118. Upwards of over 70 truckloads of rock were hauled out.
Where did you haul that to?
Storm pit, if I'm not mistaken. Some went on some back roads, some of the stuff that we could build in the area. Everything else went to storm pit. Roadside spraying, we are about 90% complete. We have Township 4117 and like 6 miles in 4017 left, and then we'll start over. Once we see some canola go down and peas go down, we can get on to the sensitive crop areas. Gravel pit inspections are ongoing. Brush sites, we're still.
Just 2 seconds before you jump over that one. Our favorite pit up north. We talked about it when we set this up. Have you got any word back from inspector? No.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for, once I can have grass growing. We're watering the pieces where the rock piles were. We've seeded it, we're watering it, so once I have grass growth, I'll have her come out. But there's,
And it should be wrote off this fall, yeah.
I'm not saying that.
It should be though.
I hope it is.
Carry on.
Just if I can with the gravel pit inspection, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
Quentin, in my area, just by the transfer site and by the Erskine lagoons there was some overburden that was come from the Erskine project that was put in there. Did you guys get a chance to have a look at that at all? I sent it in to Joe, and there's some ants and wormwood and weeds growing in on the top of that. And I was hoping we'd get it a couple of weeks ago before it went to seed, but I think we did. And another one that was brought to my attention was just right across from John here, that road allowance.
The one we put in
by Hurley's. I told the person that it was the town's, but I'm not sure. I think it might be. I don't know where that falls into. I was going to ask you on, but it just came to mind now. So
The road is the town.
yeah, I think so. So
for the town.
yeah, I think so. I just wanted to double check. But there's an ants and wormwood down there. That hole that was the house yard there is full of ants, but that is the town's. I know that for a fact. Yeah, I'm not sure if we have anything to do with that. We're on Turkey side, but the other side's. If you get the call, you'll know what that's about.
It's got anything on absent wormwood? Ernie?
On the reclamation of this gravel pit, do they go by the same rules as what oil leases do?
No. Not even close.
Like in the oil patch, it gets another 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
Of what, like to make sure that there's growth on it.
The inspector told me, once there's grass growing, she'll come back out and re-inspect.
Thank you.
So,
Go ahead, James.
Mr. Chairman, through to administration, would it be advantageous, would she come in and do a little presentation about what she expects?
I can try, she's awfully busy.
Yeah, but it'd be good for us to get an idea of,
Even wintertime.
what is your expectations when we're trying, because how many pits do we have to reclaim right now? Do we have 4 on the go?
Four are in the works for
Reclamation.
Inspections, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe if we as council understand, or board here understands that,
What we have to do to mitigate the.
yeah,
also strategic plan. The
Strategic plan, like, that could fit for years to come. This is the steps you gotta be taking to
good point, very good point, yeah.
off the books.
Yeah.
So we don't have a council talking, 15 years, or 20 years, we've been paying a lease.
20 years, over 20, we've been paying on the one lease.
And then we could put that into policy.
Ernie? But
To your comment there, James, like it would have been nice to know, like with this rock pile, knowing that it would have had to been removed prior to, even though the landowner had said to do.
you're up, Quentin, next.
Landowner said they wanted it, so it was left.
Yeah.
Then the landowner changed his mind, and the inspector says, whatever the landowner wants, the landowner gets.
The wind switched and he
Comes
changed
back
it.
out to re-inspect. If he decides that the other 2 small piles he wants gone, we start over, remove those now. If he decides, decide that they want
The person,
the road gone, we go back and remove the road. If they decide they want a dugout filled with water, we go, whatever the landowner wants, we are held to that, even if they sign off on it.
There has to be a point though that
Have a letter right here saying that he wanted those piles, and then the day the inspector is out, change his mind.
That's gotta,
well, see, it,
that's a discussion that we need to have with the minister and have that discussion to say, okay, we get it, but here is a case of where this can't go on forever.
well, and abusing the county and their finances is all that is. But there you go.
that was just the point. They can drag it out as long as they want, but there has to be a spot where it is signed off on what's wanted. We should be able to move forward from that point, but that's a political piece. We'll take forward.
Ernie?
That's why I won't promise that it's gonna pass, because who knows what's next. She said if the grass comes up and no other issues, it'll pass, but what if there's another issue that's get brought up?
Well, like we pick they picked the driest year and it's '02. Go ahead.
In the oil patch, if the farmer says to leave it, the authority is on the environment to overrule. And that's where it should be. The authority should be final say on it.
But this is an oil patch.
You deal with the same board, the environment.
It's a completely
Different spectrum.
Ernie, you've been around the government long enough, you know that there is multiple facets of this
There's
city.
oil field and there's government.
I mean, it's like going to AHS, when you talk to somebody at AHS, I mean, you could have 15 different people and talk all about the same subject. Yeah.
15 different opinions.
Yeah.
But Quentin's trying to work on it as hard as he can, and
Well, I think we did have some discussion about talking with the minister in the past about using a third-party inspector, et cetera, et cetera.
they're good. Yeah.
So we had a little bit of success there, so.
But, you know, we want the pile, we don't want the pile. Now, that's not really Quentin's fault. Go ahead.
Just a question back through to Nikki. Has environment opened any windows up for fall RMA?
They haven't notified us of an open window, but we always request, so I'll just submit a request with this item at the top.
That would be fitting. If not, in the spring.
This has went on a long time, 20 years is a long time. Anybody else? Moving on. Go ahead, Quentin.
Believe it or not, the water pump has gone up quite a bit this year. Landscaped and seeded the Indian Arena. The utilities upgraded some lines 2 years ago, and then we waited for all the topsoils and the earthwork to settle, so that got finished off.
It's actually Indian Hall.
Yeah. Yeah, right in behind is a 2 acre
L shape.
Yeah.
I'm impressed that they did get an arena in Indiana.
We all call it the arena, should we call it?
That's all right. You knew where you were. Go ahead, Ernie, or Larry.
Quentin, I just have a question on the water pump. Did it go out and pump water out of Shooting Lake this year? You know?
Pump water out of?
Yeah.
I don't ask where they're pumping water from or to. What I do say is make sure you follow all the Alberta environment regulations. I have no idea. You can talk to me afterwards about a landowner that may or may not have rented it, and I can tell you if they've rented it.
I will ask you that question afterwards.
Ask me now if you want, but I won't have the answer. I have to go back to the
Good.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, carry on.
So we're in the midst of just finishing off our chemical jug collection holders. We're making bag holders for the transfer sites, put some lids on them, so we'll have them out shortly. And we're assisting with bridge replacement, BFO 7577, the Big Valley Bridge that was shut down earlier.
Just a question going back to the spray jigs. There's a sign at the transfer station saying that those pickups will end at the transfer stations.
Clean Farm says I have to put those signs up. You guys have given direction that we'll keep collecting as long as we need to keep collecting. That's where we
At every collection station,
Yeah.
Big Valley, Bymore, all of them.
We're collecting now, we'll keep collecting. So
This place won't collect as often.
I was asked that question the other day.
So what, can you elaborate a little bit more, Quentin? So the Clean Farms has told you to put the signs up. Why, what's the gig there if we're still collecting? Why?
The Clean Farms vision is to have producers return chemical jugs back to their vendors, the retails, right?
That's actually where they should go.
Well, they'll collect bags, and when their sea cans full, they come and they haul them away.
So who are the vendors doing that right now? Do you know if any of our vendors in our community are doing it?
I see a bunch of empty totes at UFA. I haven't asked specifically.
I mean, if the sign goes up and we get the question, I mean, we tell them they should be going back to the retailer. But that'd be interesting to know.
We could look into that before our next meeting. Please. But
When also on that, you said except Botha, has there just never been there or why?
There's never been a
Chemical collection site, there's no place to put chemical jugs at this point. Every other place, there's a clay bedded area that's beveled down to collect the water so that any of the runoff stays within a certain area. So all of our transfer sites, except for Botha, have that in place, have had for
forever.
Just a question, if the question arises to Councilor Gender or something.
I know the one vendor that sold some stuff, said, I'll just take it to the dump. So I think you gotta get the word out to them that they got to set up a station to collect this stuff. Go ahead.
once we have
our holders out, we'll take pictures and we can advertise.
Is it worthwhile talking to some of the local vendors? We have a system that works, that the public is generally aware of and utilizing. Maybe there's a partnership to be had because we have the facilities that the public's using. We have staff that are trained in how to manage this, and we have the area to do it. If our vendors are going to ignore this problem, do we approach them about some sort of partnership?
This was the whole idea with us. We went to Clean Farms and we advocated that who should be doing this is the end of use recycling should be, right? Who sells the product should be the guys that recycle it. Clean Farms is doing exactly what we've asked them to do. The only thing is where we're at right now is
The retailer guys aren't getting it.
retailers are dragging their feet, and we as a group decided that we weren't just going to shut it down, and then our fear is that
They go back to throwing it in the brush piles.
or throw it into our garbage bins. You bring a truckload of plastic containers and you're pissed off because you can't dump them. They're not driving them into Stettler, they just dump them in the garbage. So that was our concern at the
Some of
time.
that's going on now, yeah.
so
And I think Clean Farms it's not like they're dictating to us that they can't, they're just saying that they're trying to encourage people to go back to the vendors,
And
right?
that's where it should go, is to the people that sold it should return it, not the county, but. Anybody else?
Should put a deposit on it like they do with the pop bottles. Whole new economy. You can make money.
Let's have that thing.
Move on.
Let's see, besides looking through some of the pictures, that is my report.
You got a ton of compliments for the work you did out at Scenic Sands on the pathways. Kudos to you and your team.
pass that on. Find a pretty picture of that. Yeah, context leave aside.
Oh, you're not blowing anything up?
Haven't done a single one.
Really?
Really?
Oh, man,
Something will lack them
that's my whole thing. I enjoy coming to see the blowed up pictures.
I know. I had one producer call in like mid-April. I said, well, when I get my supplies, we'll come take a look. And then I was like, okay, I'm ready, let's go. And he's like, no, I think I want that water. I haven't had any requests since. It's been a pretty quiet year, actually.
Okay.
Have we dealt with absent wormwood in Les's area?
We're dealing with.
It's not dealt with, we're dealing with.
Dealing with? Okay, thank you.
Landowner will not return witness calls.
You come out and go down to his place, he lives in my area. Cause that, yeah, he's really got the neighbors riled up over there.
So Quentin, what is the best case?
Well, right now, mow it down before,
What do you do typically with ants? You just smoke it with chemical, and what chemical do you use?
Depending on the time of year.
Okay,
So in May and June, you have 3 or 4 options as far as absinthe wormwood control on pasture, on rangeland. But come like mid-June, end of June into July, August, you're down to just a couple of the expensive ones. And if we wait much longer, then you're basically trying to help your neighbors by knocking it down so that the seed doesn't spread in the snow.
and that's involves mowing and laying it down.
Mowing, swathing, whatever, it doesn't matter how you knock it down.
It's the seeds are already there, it waxes off and you can't kill it anyhow, right? When,
You can't kill seed with herbicide.
no, but you have trouble, you're better to spray it in the spring. You have better results, do you not?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the plant's actively growing. Now, this is also a difficult year to try and do.
Because they don't grow and they're waxed off, they don't kill them anyhow. But he never has got back to you and he never has cut any of it down,
No, not yet.
keep it on his own land. Yeah.
is there any critter that eats it?
Shouldn't say no.
In a bad year, like event with vegetation, they might go after it, but it taints the milk.
What's that?
Anything that produces milk,
It will taint the milk.
Fair enough.
And sheep don't eat it, do
I don't know, I never have it, so I don't know.
Okay.
I've worked very hard to keep it off my property, so.
I don't think they do.
I go out into the ditch in front of my house and dig it out, put it in a plastic bag and take it,
Take it to the dump.
burn it.
Oh,
It needs to be burned back to hell where it came from.
that's quite a thing, and when you let it go and somebody isn't looking after it, I can see why the neighbors get upset, like, I really do.
Well, and some wormwood should be burned, sent back to
How
hell.
are we making out on, highways? Out of our control with, toad flags and chemical and everything else.
Highways look like they're in pretty good shape right now.
Are they doing these highways fence to fence? I seen that on
For mowing or for vegetation control?
mowing.
56, they got sent that out.
Highway 12 is one width, I thought.
One with, but part of, and I can't remember whether it's also in 56, if it is, that's great. Yeah. I don't
Sent that out.
That's apparently why they didn't let a hay contract.
Hello?
Down by, yeah, sure, yeah.
Sell, buy, sell, buy.
Okay. Good? You got her? That's your report?
Yeah.
Move it.
I'll move his report.
Hand up.
Thank you.
All in favor? Carried. Now we're moving on.
I thought we already did that, didn't we?
Oh, no, we are.
5.2. This is just an update.
this is just an update.
Currently,
Go ahead.
19 counties or MDs in the province have declared, most being in the south, 2 in the central region and 2 in the north. And I shouldn't say drought, they've declared agriculture disaster because I believe the ones in the north are declaring because of excessive moisture. If you can zoom out just a little bit, Andrew. So there, Your map is the MD special areas and counties that have declared us being the first and the last one being Pitcher Creek to this point.
Have you heard that Saskatchewan's $70 a cow? Per cow, in their cow herd? Yes, no?
That's what they're getting reimbursed from the province, or what do you?
Haven't heard that, okay. $70, what would that buy, like,
Bucket
to
to
a
feed,
bale?
that'd be a bucket to feed them in.
Go ahead, Barry.
I just also received a letter back from our ag minister, and I forwarded it to a vet. And it's basically replying that they recognize they're watching the same, I think probably the same maps that we saw today. And, but I do think we've got to continue with pressure on that for subsidies.
Go ahead, Les.
I think James.
Go ahead, Les.
Go ahead, Les.
Anyways, I think it would not hurt to, our Ag Service Board to prompt the government to, get on board with the Agri Recovery Program again, because I think that one's sort of a catch-all. Even though the funding isn't high, it is something, and people can use it as they see fit. If they use it for purchase of feed, or use it for transportation, or enhancing their water, or whatever they need for because of these drought-related problems. But I think our ASB should probably send that letter on to the government, yeah.
Quentin can handle that. James?
Quentin, have you, down in the southern part of the country, typically they are irrigating their hay crops. Have you heard that there was some pumps down, or there was some issues that were going on down there? Because, I mean, typically they still have water to water those hay crops, and they put the hay crops, but hay is going to be, then you can't even find it down south. Those guys are looking as well, so. I'm just wondering, have you heard anything, or?
Okay, any issues down there?
I just heard somebody told me one of their pump systems were down, or one of the
Irrigation systems.
I think part of that is they can't pump because they didn't have enough source water.
Oh, okay.
Like, I just talked to a fellow that's down south of Brooks and said that reservoir is lower than it's been for years. But that's the reason, is their source water, they only could pump so much this year.
Oh, okay. I just heard that, and I mean, that's the disturbing part of it, because they kind of, no matter whether they get water or not water, they've always produced hay out of that country. So sometimes three crops.
They shut them off when that thing gets so low. You good there? Right.
I was just going to say, Mr. Chairman, that I think my suggestion to write the letter encouraging the province to do the Agri Recovery Program again with the federal government, I think that should be in a form of a motion. It should be voted on. So I will make the motion, yes.
Good.
Motion for what specifically? In regards to
Yeah,
Strongly encouraged.
The provincial government to fund the Agri Recovery Program. And I think it's a joint program with the province and the federal government. So they would need federal approval, and I'm thinking they're working on it. But I think the more encouragement or support they get, the harder they'll try to get that program through.
If they're close to the pile on their desk.
Yeah.
We did receive a letter Friday night from Minister Sigurdsson after the package was released. Andrew, I just emailed it, if you could pull it up for council to look at.
What was the last part of that thing?
Andrew's going to pull up the letter from Minister Sigurdsson that came in on Friday night in response to our declaration of disaster and our July 20th request for additional assistance for producers in the form of feed and transportation. So there is a response on your screens.
We'll just give you a minute and read a rough read through it.
I think you'd sent this out to everybody, didn't you?
I think I did forward it out to everybody.
Yeah, I've read that.
Everybody that declared, or everybody in the province?
that they had written their federal counterparts to trigger the ag recovery joint assessment. So,
Maybe we need to send a letter to our MP though.
yeah, okay, I'll add that to my motion.
Our MP and the federal minister of agriculture.
That's where the last one, half of it comes from the feds and the province.
Our MP.
Province was there yesterday, and the feds took forever to pay their share, but. Yep, so you want
I'll add that as well.
to, yeah,
Our federal MP, Damien,
Michelle?
yeah, and the federal minister of agriculture.
You make the motion, all in favor?
And I think in that letter, we just courtesy copy our provincial minister, so he knows that we're doing it.
And our ML.
And our MLA, because he's a strong guy in the mix of things. Okay. I think we've about beat that to death, have we? Anybody else got anything else? No? Okay, carry on. Post 39 update. Quentin,
What would you like to know?
I'd like to know that they're gonna let us have it all again, and they're gonna send out a whole lot, let us, fill that one shop. Right, full of it. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna sit here and politely smile then.
That's fine. I just got a question for Quentin. Has there been much feedback on the results and success of the alternate products that people are? Is it a fattening agent or is it?
Yeah, they're in good shape going into winter.
I don't know, not many are actually buying from me, so it's really hard for me to even give you an answer on that.
Okay, well, if you haven't had feedback, it's
So
no.
if one ratepayer tried the Ramet Green, they claimed it didn't work very well, but they kept buying more of it. So I don't know. It seemed to be working where I've put it. That being said, I was controlling like 5 acres, 10 acres, maybe 20 acres over here, like not very big areas, right? So I noticed the difference, but I put 181 kilograms of gopher poison out this year, which works out to just over 8 large bags.
And how much are bags worth? Roughly.
240 for the large bag, I think. The 9 kilogram pails would be, I think they're just over 100, 110, $115 for a 9 kilograms, so 22 pound, 25 pound pail.
25-pound pail.
I think the large 50 or 55 pound Rosal bags, pretty sure they're around that 230 or 240 a bag.
Larry, I was riding out in your country and on the north side, whoever's got that hayfield, like almost right across from your dad's place there. I don't think it's Jackson's. I'm not sure who it is.
It's Brian.
Is he using the traps? Is that what was out there? Because there was a whole bunch of white poles, and I was thinking I kind of thought it was.
They're probably trapping.
Oh, okay, yeah. They're bait stations or whatever. So
Because the holes this year just went up real.
yeah, I had
Any lowland, it's just.
I was trapping moles in my hayland, and I mean, I think I was getting 4 a day for quite a while. So I got double digits of moles on 8 acres is a lot of moles.
No, it's a perfect storm. They had the best luck at having little ones I've ever seen. They could loot it there at home. 2 grandsons shooting them as hard as they can on ours and the neighbors. Went to town. I still got some 22 shells, but I thought, oh, I'll buy some. They're pro-nature, don't have any. Whatever Tash out here, she don't have any either. Can't get them. Can't get poison, can't get shells. I don't know.
Are there gophers in Ottawa?
There's gonna be.
Well, it's a serious question. Do they, in Eastern Canada, there was a question that was asked to me. Do they have gophers in Eastern Canada?
Not the Maritimes, I know that for sure.
And I just wondered if Ottawa area has gophers. I don't know well enough.
It's got-
When I was in Edson, they don't have gophers in Edson.
There's no registering grounds.
Yeah, it was kind of odd because I was one of the guys that when I was there asking about shooting gophers and he goes, what? Okay.
So to answer your question, Manitoba is usually the farthest they gauge as a regular habitat.
Manitoba's as far as they go, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's none in Ontario that I know of.
If we humanely trap them, maybe we could ship some down.
Well, that's letting trap them, and I know one household where they could go. And we'll make a. Just send them a few of those. Anyhow, I think the restrict line is update. You give it to us,
I'll receive for information.
receive for information, because they're not going to do it unless we change things. All in favor or carried? Council's request for information. Any? No, none. Business arising from the minutes, none. New business. County of Stettler disaster letter on page 40. Everybody read it?
And that's what we had to reply come back on. So
Yeah. So that's been dealt with. Letter of the minister, right? Sure. Page 42.
Mr. Chairman, do you want to have a receipt for information?
I think on both of them, please. You're gonna do that?
I'll give you a 9.1 and 9.3, 9.2. I don't know why there's 3 there.
Huh?
I think there's just 2.
They're just two. On both of
I'll
them?
give you a receipt for information on both of those.
Yep. All in favor? Carried. Move on. Update financials. Verbal.
Spend our money and what?
Spending it,
Good man.
spending it. My egg tank loaders are showing over budget, but that's because we had, some vandalism. And,
Which one got vandalism now?
well, we just got notified this morning that I have to go down and check out the Blyamore tank loader on Highway 589. The big doors propped halfway open.
Maybe that's a spot that we need to put those cameras.
I have a sign on there that says any more vandalism, I'll just shut it down. In a drought year, that's not gonna be very good.
I don't know, you're gonna punish the whole community for one or two idiots that vandalize stuff? I guess you could. Oh, Les, you're right. What do you
Well,
think?
it's really being well used this year. Every time I go by, there's somebody loading water for hauling for livestock. And it's really, I mean, it's been really good, but I'm hoping there isn't too much damage, but I did get that report this morning that the door was part open, so it doesn't sound real good, but hopefully they didn't damage too much.
What were they trying to accomplish? What did they accomplish? Were they trying to get free water or what?
I got the email sitting here this morning, so I
It
don't know.
is free water.
Oh, that's, I was being facetious, Mr.
Oh, okay, you're being sarcastic, is what you're being. Okay, Karen,
How far is that well away from the truck hill?
in between them.
How far is the well? Good question. I don't think it's very far.
4 miles from each, probably.
You're asking how far the well is that feeds that building?
No, between trucks.
Oh, I have no idea. Because the next ones would be Blyamore,
3 miles
Blymore's,
from,
or,
maybe 4,
Ottawa one.
and then to, what, maybe,
5 or 8 miles.
I was just trying to wrap my head around when this is down, when it gets vandalized, how far is the other option? And it sounds like it's
Pretty
going
close.
up.
It's not,
But when they're hauling,
A break point as far as,
well, when they're doing spraying and stuff, though, they like it. And watering too, they can fill there rather than go through all the rest of the things.
well, I think,
I know the one in Big Valley is used lots this year, all the time.
I think a lot of the sprayers actually do use the water from the truck fill stations because it's cleaner.
Cleaner, yeah.
Well water, it normally has silt and stuff in it, which plugs nozzles, so, but it's typically, and that, today's sprayers, they don't use a large volume of water. So I think typically they purchase for spraying and household use, but the agricultural livestock watering is, a lot of them take it from just the water well because it's free, of course, and it'd be quite pricey hauling water every day from the purchase plant. So you don't need potable water for cattle, but
every other truck fill, they're hauling livestock water, paying for it with a pin. They got a unique thing called a pin. And I agree with Councillor Stevens. When we see vandalism on this stuff, when they can go 4 miles either direction, I question the having it open to give it away when we're paying to fix something that people bugger up. And it's penalizing the people that have been good, I know. But we've had other cases down there where people were hauling spray water and stuff and actually admitting vandalism. So I do think maybe more in our more popular, when you call Indian, your more populated place, but maybe there'd be less vandalism if that all with the truck fills. But they're doing that all over. We're having people tie in and paying for services to do it too, so to water livestock. So.
Well, I would suggest that we get an estimate, come back next meeting and decide this isn't something that's going to be decided here. But when we know more, we'll have the ability to make a decision. Maybe it's part of our strategic plan that we look at it. Find out what the true cost of running that well on a regular basis. And unfortunately, as costs go up, service may have to go down a little bit to keep taxes where they're at.
I like the idea of putting a camera up myself. Huh? They didn't down in my area, they didn't steal it, it was up high enough, we couldn't get to it. Hey, we couldn't get to it. I think maybe do that. And if they do vandalism, they could charge us vandalism. I don't know if they want to have that on their record or not. Anyhow, we'll move on.
That's it for financials really, as far as pointing out the highlights.
Any other questions on the financials? You guys have Frank? Okay. All in favor? Carried. Moving on. District Nyberg,
Well, I guess it was
page 44.
last Saturday. You can see from the pictures. I did my wife and I did the hosting of the bus tour. Quentin, you were missed. It was actually interesting. We had quite a few repeat customers, and they I honestly felt bad because, Quentin's not here. And I go, oh man, I really got to step it up. So you must have done a very notable job in the past. So kudos to you in the past. We did have a full bus, and we went to 4 different places. We started out at G3, and then we went over to Spirit Respite Ranch. From there, we ended up going to the Ford Farmstead store, and then ended our day at the museum. I found the tour to be phenomenal. There was lots of great questions, lots of people from outside our community, lots of people within our community. One of the things, the reason I asked about the gophers was I brought up the fact about we used to have more gophers than gophers till they took the strychnine away. Now we have more gophers, and it was interesting. Some of our city counterparts or city visitors were talking about it. They also took away our right to shoot. So I think it was a very educational portion for some of our city people that understood that not only did they take away our ability to get rid of gophers using a trusted method of strychnine, to also taking away our ability to shoot them as well. So that was an interesting take. Very educational. The remarks came back very much the fact that it was a G3. They were just amazed at the volumes and the how they work there. And then, talking about Stettler being the heart of Alberta, and we showed that with the Spirit Respite Ranch. They very much put their heart and soul into it. And the same with Ford Farmstead. They put their heart and soul into our community. So I think that was very, very well received. You can see by the pictures some of the cool stuff that we got to take in. We ended the day, of course, with the long table supper. I was the MC for that, and Larry was there as well, and the meal was phenomenal. It was very well attended again, sold out, interestingly enough, from the organizers. We had a number of people that tried to get tickets and were turned away because they didn't get in early enough. So the success of this is continuing to build, and it was, I don't think we could have asked for a better evening. The wind kind of died down at the end there, and it was just a wonderful evening. Stettler Brewing Company was they provided beer through the Ag Service Board and facility, or Ag Services, County Ag Services at the Respite Ranch, and very well received. There, I think, kind of let people know from outside our community what we're doing here as far as that opportunity. The Ford Farmstead store got quite a bit of business, plus they actually have accommodations now, so there were some people that were talking about coming back and staying there. And then the Respite Ranch ended up getting, I think, a few volunteers, some donators, and they did really well that way. So I think it was a success all around. Interestingly enough, the two chefs had a duel last year on the appetizers, and then it was round 2 this year, and they win or lose by judging the competition by the people that are there. And the first round went to the one the Chef Wright, and the second round this year went to Sejogen, Brady, thank you. So now they are 1-1, so it's going to be the best out of 3. They're both coming back next year to finish that challenge off. So that was kind of a neat thing to have. And it was an all-around great event. I think you can.
Looked like you had to stop at the museum for the John Deere show.
We did. The final leg of our tour was the museum, absolutely, and they had the 120 years of John Deere. I introduced Alf Erickson as somebody that bleeds green, and it was interesting because the joke was there, and then Alf gets on the bus and does his little spiel, and his knowledge on John Deere is, second to none. He's got more knowledge than probably most people have forgot, and or he's forgotten more than most people know. Anyways, and then he gets on, and then he just said that he had been sick, and they found out that he bled green at the hospital too. So it was well received that way. Yeah. Is there any questions, Larry? I don't know if you.
From John Deere also too, Brant did have combines and tractors sitting up on Main Street, Stettler, so you do see a combine park on Main Street.
Yeah.
And they really accommodated things also. So that was great. Our vendors, everybody was fully into this whole long table supper. Never heard a complaint from anybody. Everything was compliments. And the volunteers did a wonderful job hustling meals back and forth. Nikki was one of them, and anytime she's usually involved with something, it's going to go well. So.
And I would like to say that absolutely, Larry. Nikki, huge hats off. Not only were you running the county side of it, but then you volunteered your own time at the end of the evening to help serve. So very much, thank you very much. You worked your keister off there.
Thanks. It's a huge team effort from all of us. I know Quentin, while he wasn't able to be at the event, he spent a couple of weeks preparing and test driving the routes, making sure our bus could turn around, which is one of the reasons our bus driver requests to come back year after year because they're organized, and that doesn't go without a lot of pre-planning. His staff was complimented over and over to me throughout the day. I mean, they're standing at the bus handing out food, and then standing at the bus holding a garbage bag, collecting, recycling, and garbage with the biggest smiles on your face that you can see. And so you can just tell that they're happy to be there, they're happy to help, and all of that makes the county shine. So I just want to thank all of Quentin staff and Quentin and Joe for all their hard work, because it doesn't all happen. The magic doesn't all happen on that day. It happens before and it happens after. So if I may just point out a couple of things, we had our wrap-up meeting yesterday. You'll see at this end of the table on the picture some neighbors from Starland County who came down and enjoyed it from their council. And at the other end of the table, you can't see, but at the far end of the table are some people from another community who want to do a day like we do, and they were along for the ride to see how we did it. So that's the greatest form of flattery is what's the word?
Coffee chatting.
Yeah. So we should take a tip of the hat from them too.
Our neighbors to the south, they've been here more than 1 year too. I did a job with them.
Yes.
Yeah, they were there last year when
Steve
When I was-
Steve and Jackie.
Steve and Jockey actually one of those. Yeah.
Go ahead, Ernie.
The two chefs, are they from very far away? Or
Camrose. Well, actually, one has a restaurant in Camrose already, and one is setting one up in Camrose. They're kind of friends. I think they've worked together in the past, so it is very much.
friendly rivalry?
Yeah, absolutely.
They rode there together, so.
Yeah, and they're interestingly enough, their significant others were sitting beside us, and so it was kind of we got the goals notes on the chef as well. So and they are continuing to be in competition in Camrose in business competition, but such good rivalry between the two of them that they're promoting each other's restaurants well. At least their significant others were to us. You got to try this guy's restaurant, and when they get set up, you got to try his restaurant, kind of thing. So I think they work very well together.
They very much complement each other.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm just kind of wondering, is there a backup? Say like the way with the ship.
Yes, so the curling rink is the backup for it. And we were touch and go because the weather at the beginning of the day there was a little bit of rain, but it was almost perfect. It knocked all the dust down, and it basically the wind was a little bit there just to keep the extreme heat off everybody. So it was like, if you could order better weather, I don't know how you would have done it.
Like, by looking at the picture, an absolute blue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a little windy at the beginning, and I was a little worried, but then it was like God just turned the wind off and said, "Here, you guys take care of it."
Entertainment too.
Yeah, we did. We had the Young Guns entertaining, doing a dance afterwards. Not as well received. I think we could have maybe promoted a little better to the general public that know that was a free venue that just the general public could have went to, and not. Yeah.
They are quite good. I've heard them a couple times. But I'll give you a motion to receive this report for information.
All in favor? Carried. Seminars coming up.
Biggest one to note that is not on there is November 2, Central Region Egg Service Conference. County Flagstaff is host. Resolutions are due to the secretary October 5.
Do we have anything you want to bring up?
There might be one after we go in camera.
Are we going in camera?
Go ahead.
Oh, I gotta turn the page over. Oh, there's nothing in camera there. We can't have it there. You cannot have it.
We adjourned the meeting, but, no, we're going to camera right away.
Okay. I will receive the information for the workshops and to be announced.
Okay. All in favor? Carried. Now, we'll flip the sheet over. And we all know when the next meeting is, but now we're gonna go in camera.
Or we just.
Paul,
Or we just adjourn the meeting.
oh, you want to adjourn the meeting?
Camera. Probably better to go in camera.
We'll go in camera. Paul already made the motion. All in favor to go into camera?